Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Across the Pod NFL podcast as we review Week 15 of the 2024 NFL season. My God, does that sound crazy to me? All the months we've had of planning this season, and we're now only 3 game weeks away from finishing the regular season. Unbelievable, crazy amount of time has flown. Unbelievable. Of course, I am, as ever, your host, Andy Davis, doing it today solo, as Jason Derulo once said, I am riding solo today. Our guest we had planned to come on, unfortunately, had to pull out last minute. So it is just me this week reviewing Week 15 in the NFL. And apologies for the lack of Week 15 preview. Live just got on the way, but we are back to talk all things NFL in Week 15. And it starts off with probably the worst game of the week. I mean, to be fair, at least the game is close. It was a 12-6 win for the Los Angeles Rams. I mean, for me, nothing really is more of a horrible watch than a team being 30, 40 points up and just coasting through the third and fourth quarter. Neither team really gives much effort because they know they're not going to win and they know they're not going to lose, both teams respectively. But this game wasn't great. Not a single field goal. Mad considering the week before the Rams were involved in a really exciting shootout with the Buffalo Bills. To then have no touchdowns, all field goals. Real contrast of emotions. You think about the last season, Las Vegas Raiders being involved in the 62-7 win over the Los Angeles Chargers, and then the week before or week after they lost 3-0, and it was that 3 points scored in the fourth quarter. So it's amazing how these sort of things work out. And again, it's why we love the sport. Week to week, a team can go from scoring 40 points to scoring 12. It's one of those leagues, and that's why we love it. But it wasn't a great game. I think the weather obviously had a massive impact on it. Neither team really got going. Good day for defense, but yeah, offense was really shoddy. I mean, the stat line wasn't great. I mean, Matt Stafford had 160 yards, no touchdowns. Brock Purdy, no touchdowns as well, 142 yards. There was a point in the game where it was looking really poor, and that both quarterbacks weren't getting going at all. And really, neither quarterback got going. Really, I mean, Kieran Williams was probably the star of the show on offense, 108 yards. Compare that to Garendo's 57 yards for the 49ers, and it really hots up the NFC West. We'll get on to more on the Seahawks later on. I mean, they did lose to the Green Bay Packers. That was on Sunday Night Football, and that scoreline was 30-13 to the Packers. Which now means NFC West-wise, the Rams and Seahawks now tied on 8-6. And then the Cardinals, who beat the Patriots on Sunday 30-17 on 7-7, whereas the Niners are on 6-8, which means they're 2 wins off the top of the division with 3 games left. And I think with how it's gone, I think the last spot in the playoffs is the Commanders with 9 in the NFC. The 49ers literally can't get anyway other than winning the division. And probably the same goes for the Cardinals, to be honest. I think they probably got a slim chance. So I think this NFC West is probably now down to 2 teams in the Rams and the Seahawks, where probably where the season began, everyone thought it would be the Rams and Lions. They probably earmarked this Week 15 game as the one that would be maybe a division deciding game. But it turns out the only thing is deciding that the Niners probably aren't going to make the playoffs. And I'm fully aware we're playing them next week. We're probably going to lose that game now. I said that. But yeah, Niners have been poor. Injuries also been a massive factor. And yeah, it's not been their season. Same thing as 2020 when they had a bad season, injury hit season after losing Super Bowl in the 2019 season, and I think the same thing's happening here. I don't think anyone should be shading any light on Shanahan in a bad way. I think we all seen what he's done the last 5-6 years. Say what you want about his big game credentials. I'm a big doubter of myself, but what you can't deny is how good he's been for this team. So I think no one should be doubting him or this Niners team. Obviously, a lot of interesting scenarios to the contracts next year. Don't know what's going to happen to them and what their future is, but certainly, in the short term future, it's not been a great real season for them, especially with all the hope they had before the season. Everyone viewing it as a last dance. People having them as Super Bowl favourites or one of the Super Bowl favourites. I know Neil Reynolds did. Many had the 49ers Bengals as their Super Bowl matchup, and neither team probably going to make the playoffs. But the Rams, fair play to them. You've got to give the Rams credit. I mean, was it a 1-4 start, 1-3 start? Many could have had them already written off. Many could have had them, not making the playoffs and having maybe tanking for a new quarterback with Stafford getting on. But they've really upped their game in the last few weeks, and I want to get up their schedule now because they've been on some sort of run. It's been unbelievable. And the Rams, you've got to give again Sean McVay huge credit. I mean, once again, he's beaten Shanahan. A theme of his career really that he seemed to have the upper hand on Sean McVay. There's always that classic, picture that comes around of Sean McVay almost looks like he's patting Shanahan on the head after they've beaten him. It just goes to show, just how good a coach he is and just how much the Lions have struggled against them. But they started 1-4. I mean, this included losses to the Cardinals, 41-10, lost in overtime to the Lions. Fair enough. Then since then, they've won 3 in a row, and then they won 4 of the last 5 games. So, huge credit goes to Sean McVay. They've got the Jets, Cardinals, and Seahawks in the last 3 games. So that's probably 2 wins there guaranteed. I think the Seahawks on their side of the coin. I did an article actually on the NFC West where for the franchise tag where I talked about how the division has probably not been what we expected, but it's still very much a exciting division. And then looking at the last 3 schedules for the 3 games, I should say, for the Seahawks, and it is Vikings, Bears, and Rams. And that Rams game is going to be surely one that's going to be, no one knows what the last games are in terms of when they're going to be played. Everyone knows who's playing who, but no one knows when. And I can see the way the season's going. This could be the one that's the big decider at the end. And I think we could see that on Sunday Night Football. And I cannot wait for that. It's going to be a hell of a last day. And I think this will be the one that everyone focuses on. I believe personally this will be the one that is on Sunday Night Football, personally, especially with the rivalry factor going for the division. I think seeding wise, the number 1 seeds are pretty much, I think, will be locked in by that point. You never know. I don't think it's quite as close in terms of the playoff and in terms of getting that 7th seed. So I think this could be the one that they focus on. It's a good win for the Rams and not a good result for the 49ers. Moving on to the Sunday slate, the Cowboys got back to winning ways. They beat the Panthers by 30-14. Cooper Rush having 3 touchdowns, 214 yards, surely one of his best career games. The Chiefs won by 21 points to 7 over the Cleveland Browns, but that is not the whole story. Patrick Mahomes had an injury concern in the game. According to sources on the Sleeper app, Mahomes is expected to do some work at practice on Tuesday. And we see every year Mahomes have these injuries, and it's most of the time he's come back, but at some point he's not going to come back from his injuries. He's going to have time off. The ankle problem is there. I personally feel like they may well rest him on their next few games because the division's wrapped up. I know they got the chance to get number 1 seed, so you may well see him play still. But they've got Texans next, and the Steelers, and then the Broncos. 3 teams who I think personally are all going to make the playoffs. So it's not as if they're playing the Raiders or they're playing the Patriots or the Giants. Do you know what I mean? It's not like that. So they've got 3 important games, and the Bills are hot on their tail. Only it's not far behind them in terms of the playoff picture. If I get the playoff picture up now, it's not much at all between first and second. This goes for both conferences. Looking at the AFC, the Chiefs are 13-1, the Bills are 11-3. So really looking at that as well, they've probably got the number 1 seed already. I think they can afford to certainly not play them on Sunday against Texans, who I think, despite winning on Sunday against my team, I don't think they're a great team at the moment. I think they've got huge problems at the defensive line. So I think, the Chiefs can probably afford to rest Mahomes and play Carson Wentz. I saw a thing about that, a meme on Instagram saying Carson Wentz, if Chiefs, Eagles, Super Bowl, Carson Wentz against the Eagles, and he wins the Super Bowl. That would be full 180 moment, and it would be quite the story. I don't think the Chiefs make it. I think the Eagles could, but I don't think the Chiefs make the Super Bowl. So for me, I think certainly for next week, I can see the Chiefs certainly resting Patrick Mahomes for the game. Actually, I don't believe actually is the Texans. Looking at the schedule now, it is the Texans. It is the Texans. My bad. When that I think that's the Saturday. If I'm right, saying that's the Saturday, week 16. Yeah, 6 p.m. on Saturday. So that should be a great one. For me, every year, right? I know we'll get into more in our preview episode later on in the week, but every year, me and my friends from home have a meal at the same restaurant back at home every year, and it always falls on NFL Saturday because it's always the last Saturday before Christmas. So once again, this will be one where I have to watch it on NFL Game Pass with the girlfriend with me. Whether I'll be able to watch it in full, I don't know. She's pretty good like that, and she's got her own stuff to do revision wise for exams for her job that she does. So she's got things on. I might find the time to do it. I am back home with the parents, but I'm sure I can find the time to do it. But we're moving on. We're moving off topic here. We're going on a tangent. Other scores on Sunday, you had the Jets getting their 4th win of the year. They beat the Jacksonville Jaguars by 32 points to 25. The Commanders beat the Saints by 20-19. This wasn't the end of the story. The Saints scored a touchdown, which as well, the clock did stop for it. We'll get into that in a bit. But the Saints scored a touchdown. They could have kicked the extra point to 11. They went for a 2-pointer. That didn't get completed in the end zone. Commanders won by 20-19. They go to 9-5 and are all but there in the playoffs. Yeah, going back to what I was saying before, there was a point in the game when that happened, when they scored a touchdown to get within a point of leveling it at the end. The clock stopped for a good few seconds, and I don't at all go believe into these whole NFL script conspiracies, but that would definitely fuel the talk about it. Absolutely. I mean, that was really weird, and that's why they didn't. They're pretty good at normally eradicating mistakes, and that obviously hasn't happened. Crazy. Baltimore Ravens had a great day. They beat the New York Giants by 35-14 as Lamar Jackson threw for 290 yards and 5 touchdowns against the Giants, who are now 2-12. I mean, this is an unbelievably great performance from Lamar Jackson. Huge credit to him. I mean, Josh Allen's a favourite for MVP, but Lamar Jackson isn't far behind. That was a great performance from him. And the Ravens, we expect them to be good. We expect them to beat the Giants, but not as dominant as that. And I still believe the Ravens are winning the Super Bowl. I've said it every week since the start, maybe apart from maybe week 3, week 2 sort of time, but certainly since then, I think this is Lamar Jackson's year. And I think defense obviously is the problem, but then you look at the Lions, they've given up points recently, a lot of them, same as the Bills. The Chiefs haven't looked great. So Packers have been good. I think they're definitely one to look out for. But in terms of the AFC, I think that all teams really around them have had problems. So I think for me, absolutely, Ravens for me still the team that I think could make it. And then moving on to the next game I want to focus on is Dolphins against Texans. Of course, my team, the Miami Dolphins, did lose to the Houston Texans by 20 points to 12 in a game that pretty much ends our slight small playoff hopes. Going on to the teams around us, the Broncos and the Chargers. The Broncos did beat the Colts 31-13. They moved to 9-5. Colts on the same record as us, 6-8. And then the Chargers did lose to the Buccaneers, which makes it more frustrating because if we'd won this game against the Texans, we'd be just 1 point behind. 1 win behind the Chargers in the playoff hunt. The Chargers did lose by 40-17 to the Buccaneers. 40-17 to the Buccaneers. This game for me was massively frustrating for the Dolphins against the Texans. The game that should have been won. We could have easily won this game. Tua was really poor once again in a big moment. I mean, 1 touchdown, 3 picks, 196 yards. And this is this thing that frustrates me so much is because there's Tua supporters in the fan base and just in NFL in general that defend him all the time and never ever admit he's done badly. And you can one of the interceptions you can put on, the great catch from Stingley, and there's the fumble we had as well as the 3 interceptions where you could blame on a bad offensive line, but in that scenario particularly, just throw it out of play. Tua once again is a problem. It's a huge problem. I've just written an article for the franchise tag. It's going out at some point this week on the franchise tag. The Dolphins have a Tua problem. They have a Tua problem. We really do, because Tua is not a bad quarterback. That's not what I'm saying. He's not a bad quarterback. He's not like a Daniel Jones or a Jay Cutler back in the day. He is a serviceable, good quarterback. People comparing him to Drew Brees. I'm comparing him to Kirk Cousins. Has his moments, has good stats in the regular season, but in the big games, on prime time or big games or playoff games, never does it. Tua, once again, in a big moment, has stunk the bed out. He has stunk the bed out in a big game once again. And I want to get up some numbers I found and facts found over his whole career at the Dolphins. But before I do that, people blame the defensive line, but the defensive line is responsible for all the defense that matter for you throwing a pick in open coverage, in double coverage, and missing Tyreek Hill like that. Unacceptable for a quarterback to yet again have this big game, error-filled game, and big collapse in a big moment. It's again and again. It's happening every year, and I'm getting sick of it. We're trying to be all in. We traded for Tyreek Hill, gave away a lot of draft picks. Jalen Ramsey, Bradley Chubb. We've got an amazing offense. Devon A-Chain, but most is getting on a bit. But Devon A-Chain is an amazing running back. You think about other players, obviously Jalen Waddle, Tyreek Hill. Jonathan Smith has been excellent in recent weeks. Finally got a tight end we can use with McDaniel. Defensive wise, yeah, we lost some players in the offseason, but we've still got Zach C there. We've still got Jaden Phillips when he's back healthy. This is a good team that can win now. But Tua, once again, is costing this team. And he is, for me, pretty much one of the sole reasons we lost this game. Now, you can put on the defense, but people are putting on the defense. But defense is not the problem in this game. They have been in the season. But this game, we gave ourselves many chances to get back in this game. There were plenty of third down stops. There was a fumble we forced on CJ Stroud on a O-line, by the way, that hasn't actually been great. The most sacks for a quarterback, CJ Stroud, I think it's in like 56, 58 sacks he's had. We allowed him to have 2 touchdowns, 0 picks. And that is a guy that has shown it in just 1 year, more than Tua has ever done. Big moments, you can count on him. Think of the playoffs last year with TJ Stroud. Tua has not had that moment. You can look at the Ravens game in week 3 in 2022. Week 2. You can look at the Bills game the following week when he did play. We won those games, particularly the Ravens game, probably the game of his career. You think about the comeback we had then. But it's all good doing it week 2. When the time matters against a good team, you need your quarterback to perform well. Eli Manning was never, ever good in the regular season. Never, ever good in the regular season. Playoffs time, he beat Brady twice in the Super Bowl. Both times as underdogs. Never as a favourite. Against one time a team that was 16-0, trying to be the second team in history to go the whole season unbeaten. It's just unbelievable. I'm so tired of having to try and defend this guy. This guy is an absolute scrub. This guy will never, ever be the reason we win a Super Bowl. He could win one, either a starter or as a backup somewhere, because he's got enough there. But you have to. But people saying Tua isn't playing well because of the O-line. Joe Burrow got to Super Bowl being the most sacked quarterback in regular season history, the most sacked quarterback in postseason history. He's all made the Super Bowl, and receiving core was just as good as ours. Jamar Chase, T. Higgins are just as good as Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. You cannot keep blaming the O-line every single year for this guy's problems. You simply can't. It's unacceptable. Every game he plays, every big game against a good team, or even later on in the season against the Titans last year, he craps the bed every single time in a big game. And I am sick of this guy costing us. And we are trapped because, as I said before, we're never going to be a bad team under him. But we're never going to win Super Bowls. We're going to be around the wild card round spot. That reminds me so much of Kirk Cousins. That is Kirk Cousins down to a T. Whether it's the Vikings or whether it's the Falcons right now, they are on the edge, the periphery of making playoffs or just getting in. He can never do it in a big game. He'll never, ever be the reason we win a Super Bowl. Let's go back over time and look back at his career with the Dolphins. Now, I'm going on a huge rant. I realise this, but I need to vent out somewhere because I was watching on Sunday at my parents' house. I couldn't really get angry because they were there. So I had to keep it all in. But now I'm going all out. I'm going for it. So 2020, you can give them some sort of credit. 2020, it was the final game of the regular season against Buffalo Bills. This game would have secured us a postseason berth. 1 touchdown, 3 picks, but those picks were mostly where the deficit was like 20 points. And he had to go for these big throws, had to do something. So I can't really blame him for that, although maybe we shouldn't be getting that position in the first place. But then fast forward a year later, must-win game against Tennessee Titans in the second to last game of the season. 34-3 loss to the Titans, who were the number one seed, granted. The Tua didn't throw a single touchdown in a big game once again. I think next year you can't really blame too much on him because of the injuries. And he had probably his best game of his career, certainly in that year, that one I mentioned before, against the Ravens. But 2023, which was his best season in the Dolphins jersey, won his NFL career. I mean, he had a passing yards leader. We'll say, though, Jameis Winston had the same title in 2019, threw 30 touchdowns, threw 30 picks. But we lost 3 of our last 5 games with him as our quarterback in the season where he played every single game. 14-point loss against the Titans, despite that being the score with 3 minutes left. But this is a trend that I've seen again and again and again with this guy. I mean, this season alone, before his concussion against Bills in week 2, he was diabolical. He was simply the worst player on the field, apart from maybe Cyril Neal and Jordan Poyer. But week 1, he got lucky. He was poor in that game, but Javon Hollins punched, forced fumble. Next play, Tua throws Tyreek Hill, which again, Tua threw for 20 yards. Tyreek Hill extended a 50-yard play. Tyreek Hill turned that 20-yard pass into a 60-yard touchdown. So that isn't on Tua either. That isn't down to him being good. That's down to Tyreek Hill making it good. And then come back from the concussion. And granted, against the Cardinals, against the Bills, he was pretty good. But you can't tell me why you should get excited. You can't tell me, I don't know why we got excited over this, that beating the Jets, the Patriots, and the Raiders is a sign you're back. Because granted, he had one pick in the whole that spell against the Rams, which is, again, I only game against a winning team we've beaten this season, and only the second time we've beaten a team with a winning record in the last 2 years. It's just frustrating. It's just frustrating, and but again, you can't tell me that this is the guy who's back when he's beaten 3 bad teams, and he plays a good team next week. What does he do? Has a stinker, and it's just a trend that we're seeing again and again and again. It's a really, really bad trend he's setting for himself, and if I'm honest, I don't know where we go, because we're not going to be, unless we trade for someone or we trade up for a pick, we're not getting a quarterback better. That's the problem we have. So, yeah, we're stuck with him for another few years. He signed a new contract, all that money to be an absolute shambles on the pitch sometimes, on the field, I should say. This guy is a disaster. And this is, for me, I'll never, ever again get on this Tua hype train that people get on. I'm never going to let myself get my hopes up and fall into this trap of thinking he's good because he's beaten good, bad teams. I'm not, again, falling for this trap. Not again. Absolutely not. So for me, it's frustrating because a season like this, where we expected so much, we were planning for so much. I was thinking we could maybe win our first division since 2008. We could finally win a playoff game. But no. Instead, we will probably stand as still the longest streak without a playoff win. And the misery goes on, and I don't know where we go from here because Tyreek Hill's talked about retirement. Jalen Ramsey isn't getting any younger or any better for that matter. The defense has lost players, hasn't been great at times this year, for a lot of times this year. So yeah, it's depressing. And fair play Texans, they win the division, but they haven't impressed me really. But the Dolphins for me have really frustrated me. Yeah, life of being a Dolphins fan, it's always frustrating. It's not, all bed of roses like Chiefs fans have it. It's not all bed of roses like Chiefs fans have it. It really isn't. It's not at all. I've been a fan 14, 15 years now. Not once seen us win a playoff game. Only seen us in 3. Yeah, it's not been great. But, this is what being a fan about. No one can hear and sit here and call me glory hunter. No one can do that. It's just what I have to do. I have to earn my stripes as a fan, and hopefully one day it will turn around. But right now, yeah, I don't see where that comes from. But we'll move on to the rest of the games. The Titans and Bengals played out somewhat of a thriller, but the Bengals came out on top by 37 points to 27. To start the game, probably Chase Brown, 1 touchdown, 97 yards. Joe Burrow had another fantastic game as the quarterback. 3 touchdowns, albeit 2 picks. But Chase Brown was the main man for this game. Other than that, the Eagles beat the Steelers by 27 points to 13. Eagles moved to 12-2. The Steelers moved to 10-4. And I mentioned the Colts and Broncos, and we'll go on to the 2 Monday games before going on to our final game we're going to talk about. Vikings beat the Bears 12-2. The Vikings now go. The Bears go 4-10 after the 30-12 win for the Vikings. Vikings already secured playoffs after Sunday before their game last night, but they now go 12-2. And yeah, they're definitely proving me wrong. They've such a weird team this year. They start off so well when no one expected them to do good. When everyone started getting their hopes up for them being a good team, they lost back-to-back games. And when then after that, they've gone back to winning ways. And I don't know win a playoff game, but I think they're certainly a team to look out for that could prove me wrong. They could prove me wrong. But I think this team's getting better. I really do. And I think that literally I just said then, I don't know win a playoff game. They could easily win one. If they play the Buccaneers or the Falcons, whoever wins that NFC South, if they play up against, I think even the Rams, I think they could beat the Rams on their day, even though the Rams did beat them earlier this year. I think it was in week 8. The Vikings, if you've got Jefferson and Addison playing there, Aaron Jones, Sam Darnold, who's playing against a pretty good offensive line, and a Brian Flores defense that has been fantastic. I mean, that defense last night against the Bears, the blitz, which we know Flores likes to run. I mean, the amount of times they had the 6 guys on there and they didn't really, and the Bears didn't plan for that, and they just constantly got to Caleb Williams, once again proving why he is the most sacked quarterback in the season. And they showed a stat last night that actually it's the 3rd most sacked rookie quarterback in history, which is crazy. I think I don't know whether actually amongst rookies or just NFL quarterbacks in general. David Carr had the record with 72, so it might have been just NFL quarterbacks in general. And actually, whilst we're on the game, I don't know whether anyone else had the same issue as me, and I want to certainly let me know in the DMs or in the comments on this podcast as to whether you had the same issue as me. So I had the option of watching it on my iPad or watching it on my phone. Again, like I always say, I do watch these late games in the morning on my way to work. So I'm sitting there on my bus to work this morning and I'm turning it on. And first of all, for the first, I'd say I'm watching on my iPad via a hotspot for my phone. And definitely for the first, I'd say quarter, there was a Spanish guy, I think he was a Spanish announcer. You could hear him more than Joe Buck and Troy Aikman. I don't know what was going on with the sound issues there. And there was a point in the game where they were literally you couldn't hear at all what Buck and Aikman were saying on NFL Game Pass on my iPad coverage of the game, which was full game replay ads free. Oh no, it was the full game replay, which wasn't ads free at that point. And yeah, all I could hear for the first quarter and a half, or the first quarter, was the Spanish guy announcing it, and then out of nowhere, you hear the Spanish guy go, and you hear the slowly go, I should say, and then Aikman and Buck, their voices go up. But then it gets even weirder. So I then got to work, and the 4G is absolutely terrible in work. So I went on my phone to watch the rest of it on there on my phone on Game Pass. This was the ad-free version. The whole game was in German. What the hell was that about? I have absolutely no idea what the hell was happening there. I mean, it was so weird. It was so strange. And please let me know, anyone who's listening to this podcast or watching it on YouTube, if there was anyone who also had the same issue as me. It was just awful. It was just not awful. It was just different. Because I don't know what they were saying. Obviously, some words you would have said, like, certain words. But yeah, it was so interesting hearing a German coverage of the game. Yeah, I don't get why on the one device it was coming up as the US announcing, albeit with the Spanish guy in the background. And then on my phone, it would show me the German coverage. And yeah, that was really, really, really strange. I don't know what the hell's going on there, but it was, a good performance on the Vikings, and they should be a team, I think, potentially to be feared. Other Monday night game, the Falcons played the Raiders. The Falcons did win by 15 points to 9, despite the last-ditch attempts of a Hail Mary from the Las Vegas Raiders, which almost came up trumps. But Jesse Bates got the game-sealing interception in the end zone to seal the game for the Atlanta Falcons. And before I go on to Sunday Night Football, and the Packers in particular. Bills Lions played out a thriller once again. It was the game of the week anyway. On paper, it was the best game of the week. People calling it Super Bowl preview, and if they make the Super Bowl and we get that kind of game, that might be the best Super Bowl of all time. Unbelievable, 48-42 to the Buffalo Bills, as the Lions had just a second loss of the entire season to the Bills, and it was a great performance from both quarterbacks. Goff had 5 touchdowns, 494 yards. Josh Allen had 4 total touchdowns, over 400 total yards. James Cook, 105 yards, 2 touchdowns. Who else? Amari St. Brown, 193 yards, 1 touchdown. It was just a really fun game to watch. Sam Laporta, 111 yards. It was one of the games of the season. Unbelievable game. But it came at a cost. It came at a cost. Ali McNeil and David Montgomery out for the season. That is just massive. That is so big for the Super Bowl chances. It's absolutely massive. It's absolutely massive. And I hope it isn't going to, affect them. I want the Lions to make it out the NFC. But I said it a few weeks ago. I have this vision. I've said it for weeks now. I said it all season. The Packers are going to win the NFC, and I still stand by that. I thought they're winning the NFC, the Packers. I've said it since week 1. I've said it since the offseason. I'm sticking by it, especially now. But the Lions, for me, they've given up a lot of points in recent weeks. A lot of points. And it should be a worry for the Lions fan, because you look about week 13, they gave up 20 points to the Bears and almost collapsed in the second half. They were miles ahead in the first half. They allowed the Bears back into the game. Following week into Packers, same story. They did the same thing with the Packers, lost 34-31, and now this week, week 15, they go out and give up 48 points to the Buffalo Bills. That's a worry for me. And we were praised him for so long for doing all of this without Aiden Hutchinson. But I think with him out already, McNeil out now, I think that defense is going to be even more affected by it. And I think I can still picture, like I said 2 weeks ago, 40 seconds left of the game in Detroit, NFC Championship game, Romeo Dobbs catching a touchdown pass from Jordan Love to win the game. I can picture it in my head, and I wish there was money on that particular sort of scenario. This feeling in my head is pretty strong that I'm going to see Romeo Dobbs catch for the winning touchdown to send the Packers to the Super Bowl, where they will lose to the Ravens. But this Lions team has to be concerned. It has to be concerned for the Lions. It really does. I mean, still a great team. They are the best team on paper on football, but the injuries are mounting up now. And Montgomery on the offense, I mean, that's been one of the strengths of the team, is this 1-2 punch with Gibbs and Montgomery. Now, Gibbs will still go off and do well, and I can't think who their third choice running back is now, but he'll probably have, that same sort of effect. But I just think that, two amazing running backs who both wanted to block for each other, and, whoever comes in as their third choice running back, you can't guarantee they're going to be the same quality. And I think when you got two guys like Montgomery and Gibbs both putting in performances, both putting in the yards and touchdowns, it gets hard to cover, because you think, well, if we scheme for Gibbs, they're going to go Montgomery. And if they see the Lions, the other teams scheme for Montgomery, they'll go for Gibbs. So I think that's why the Cowboys did so well in the run game a couple of years ago with Elliott and Tony Pollard. And I think that was such a great asset to their offense. And I think now, without Montgomery there, as well as obviously the problems on defense they've got now, it's a huge worry for the Lions. I really do think it's a huge worry. And again, let me know in the comments whether you think the Lions will still make the Super Bowl or not. I mean, Craig Reynolds is currently the third, this backup now, running back option for them. He's done some bits well, but not exactly been, a stellar career. So for me, huge worries for the Lions. And the Bills just keep rolling, 11-3 now, 2 wins behind the Chiefs. Probably not going to get that, number 1 seed in the AFC, but I think the Bills will probably still get the number 2 seed. I mean, looking at the rest of the AFC, Steelers are 1 win behind them, but they've got a hard end to the season, and they're not as good a team as the Bills are. And Josh Allen, for me, MVP candidate. I think it's him or Lamar Jackson for me now. I think Saquon Barkley's still within a shout. But Josh Allen, again, I mentioned before, 4 touchdowns, over 400 yards total. Once again, the defense it's a worry for me. The defense is a huge worry. Once again, allowing a lot of points. But Josh Allen can go out and just win you games when you can see 40 points. He'll go out and score you 50. He's that kind of quarterback, and he's, I think through 1 interception, I believe it was, in the maybe maybe I'm thinking of Burrow, but I'm thinking of he's either way. He's really cut down on his interceptions now, and I'm probably boring listeners now with my constant praising of Josh Allen. And people are saying, "Oh, you're a Dolphins fan. Why are you praising Allen?" I'm not going to sit here and deny greatness. I'm not going to sit here and be biased and crap on a guy just because he plays my rival team. The Bills have caused me more heartache than ever. Like no other team has caused me more heartache as my time as a fan than the Bills. Maybe the Titans, to be fair. But either way, this team I don't like. Not because the team. I think the fans are amazing. It's actually a really well run organisation, but just they've caused me some heartache as a Dolphins fan. But I'm not going to sit here and try and say Josh Allen is not very good. Oh. I've told you for years and years, this guy is the real deal, and he is the perfect quarterback. I've said it before, said it for multiple weeks now. He is the perfect quarterback. Size, arm, mobility. He's got everything, and he's not even throwing picks now. So for me, he is the MVP. I think he is the MVP now. He is so crucial to that team. Barkley has been good for Eagles, but Hurts and Brown are still there. For Josh Allen, it's him or no one. So for me, Josh Allen, I think the Bills, I don't see it being anyone other than him or Jackson winning the AFC. I really don't. I firmly believe it's not the Chiefs' year, and I think it is the Allen or Lamar Jackson's year. Move on to our final game, which is going to be the Packers beating the Seahawks. Now, I mentioned the Seahawks before. In terms of the Packers, it's another win for them. They are now 10-4, which most divisions would get you the division crown. I mean, they're third in the NFC North. They are third in the NFC North, despite a 10-4 record. Put that into context about just how good they've been and how that compares to other divisions. So, second place in the AFC East has 6 wins. Second place in the AFC North has 9 wins. Fair enough, Steelers. AFC South, second place team has 6 wins. The top place team has 9 wins. Back to the AFC North, Steelers lead division was 10 wins. Ravens on 9. The Chiefs on 13, fair enough, but the Broncos have 9 wins, second in the AFC West. 8 wins for the Chargers in third place in the AFC West. In terms of the NFC, moving on to that. Sorry for the confusion. My phone's playing up. So NFC East, second place, and the Commanders have 9 wins. NFC South, Falcons, second place team have 7 wins. Leaders have 8 wins. NFC West, Rams lead the division with 8 wins. Seahawks second, 8 wins as well. Cardinals third, 7. So all these teams who are second and third in these divisions have less wins than the Packers, but they're sitting on third place with 10-4. Now, if you look at that in the context of the conference as well, I mean, you think about how strong this NFC North is, right? So in terms of the top 6 seeds in the NFC, 3 of them in the NFC North. You've got the Lions 12-2, Eagles 12-2, Buccaneers 8-6, Rams 8-6, then Vikings 12-2, Packers 10-4. This Packers team is a real deal, and for me, I've never been more certain of the whole season of them reaching the Super Bowl, winning the NFC. I said before the season started, it might have been a bit of an out there shout, seen as that, but the more the season's gone on, the more my prediction right now is coming home to roost. The Packers are 10-4, but they are much better than 10-4 suggest. I said it before in the previous week. The Giants in 2007, or was it 2011? One of the two. They got better as the season went on, and they lost to the Patriots later on in the season, but it was close. When they played in the Super Bowl, what happened? They beat them. The Packers were blown out by the Lions in their first meeting. Second meeting, the one at Ford Field, 3-point game, down to field goal to win it at the end. They ran them close. They play them for a third time, which I think they will do in the playoffs. Packers will beat the Lions. I am so convinced of this. And they're getting closer to them every time. And now the injuries as well, I think the Packers to me are the team to watch out for the NFC. I really do. You know, the catch from Romeo Dobbs in that end zone against the Seahawks was unbelievable. It was unbelievable. The toe tapping ability of that was simply outstanding. And you think about the rest of the game, I mean, the weapons he's got to throw to, Jordan Love, it's insane. You think about the guy that I've loved for ages, Jaden Reed, a guy I always talk about with massive praise. You've got him. Christian Watson's had some sort of resurgence. He's done his part. And of course, Dontavian Wicks has his moments and does well when he's called upon. And looking at the stats on Sunday, I mean, no picks from Jordan Love, which has been rare for him recently. I mean, actually saying all this, actually wasn't a great performance from the receivers in this game. If you take, obviously, apart from the 2 touchdowns from Dobbs, one of them was the amazing catch. But Josh Jacobs as well. I mean, in this game, he had 94 yards, 1 touchdown, over 100 yards total, almost 150 yards total, both receiving and running. This guy had such a bad season last year after what was a great season 2 years before. But last season, he was so bad. Everyone thought, oh, he's got his money now. He's not going to be the same. He's obviously given up. But he has been amazing. And he's been, I think, a really underrated part of this Packers season. I really do think he's been a real underrated part of the season. I think that he has been almost the glue that holds the offense together. I mean, they can rely on him so much, in third down territories, in second and twos. I think this guy he's done everything for them, and he's not getting the credit really, but I think he's been, probably the 3rd or 4th best quarterback this season. You think of Saquon Barkley, Derrick Henry. I don't think he's far off that in terms of this season. I think you can look at other running backs this season. Aaron Jones deserves a shout, but I think he has been really, really good. And there was a stat that I saw on the coverage of the Packers game. Now I'm trying to find it. I think it might have gone. Let me find it somewhere. Basically, it was talking about the Packers season so far and the fact that the teams we've lost to this season have been the Lions twice, the Vikings, and the Eagles. All these teams are in the playoffs and with fair amount of ease. And they've lost 3 of their 4 games, I think it was, by 7 points or less, or was it 3 points or less? And also, I think the winning percentage of the teams they lost to were something like 0.834. Even they've lost have been to really good teams. They've beaten everyone they should be, and they've ran teams close most of the time. Teams haven't. I think, telling you now, there's no, especially with them being probably the 6th seed or the 5th seed and not a division winner. This team is gonna, be up against. You think if they are the 6th seed, I think they'll be the 6th seed. That will put them up against the Rams or the Bucks or the Falcons. Basically, NFC South or NFC West. I think the Packers ease past the Rams is the one I think that could beat the Packers. But they ease past the Buccaneers or Falcons. They ease past the Seahawks. They ease past the Cardinals if they win the division. And I think they'll ease past the Niners, which is rare considering their history in recent years in the playoffs. I think genuinely on their day, they could be anyone in the whole league. On their day, when they're firing, the floor has proved me so wrong in his last year or two without Rodgers. And for me, the Packers are a real team to look out for in this season. But that is where we will end the podcast for today. So I hope you've enjoyed my solo recording. I'm not doing one of these very often in the last few years since this podcast has sort of taken off. But yeah, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed talking all things ball to all of you guys. And don't forget, if you are in the UK, for those who maybe are missing DraftKings, you can go on to fantasygameday.app and use code Andy5 for money back on your first paid lineup. Don't forget 18 plus and begambleaware.org. So we are going to do a week 16 preview. We will be getting hopefully some Niners fans on. We were due to have Paul Hope on the show, friend of the show, long fan favourite of the show, a guy that's been a regular, one of my good friends in the podcast industry. He sadly cannot make the recording for this week. Hopefully we'll get him on for the review of the week 16. So we'll try and get some other fans on. I will go and message now the boys from Third and Long, Phil and Ollie. If they are available, I'll get them on for a preview. If not, then we'll get someone else on. But either way, we will hopefully have more content for you this week in the week 16 preview. Hope you guys have enjoyed this episode. And don't forget, if you are listening on iTunes or Spotify, make sure to rate the podcast. It does help a lot. Spread the word if you have a friend who likes the NFL who you haven't yet, hasn't got this podcast to listen to, do let them know and do spread the word, because it does mean a lot to me when people do that. So, yeah, if you are listening, that'll be hugely, hugely appreciated. And yeah, much love to all of you regular listeners of the show. I have been, as ever, your host, Andy Davis, here on the Cross the Pod as we review Week 15 in the NFL. Hope you guys enjoy the rest of your weeks as Christmas is nearby, and we'll see you guys next time.